In the new Roman Empire, Augustus had 75 million people from every corner of this map, different cultures, different languages, and religion. And they're not unified by gratitude and kindness. The Roman engine kept this empire going. They used roads, taxes, concrete, soldiers, grain, poetry, and propaganda to make imperial power look like peace. Augustus starts the Pax Romana in this lesson, and you'll see how this Roman engine works. This is the Pax Romana. That means Roman peace. In this lesson, we start with the year 27 BC, and we'll go to the time of Trajan, AD 117. The Roman peace will last longer than that, but here we will see the beginning of a massive road system, new domes out of concrete, the amphitheaters, and we'll deal with the hidden questions like who pays for all of this? I'm Mr. Hull. This is Ancient History. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where history reveals truth and wisdom for your journey. We take a classical approach to history grounded in what actually matters, like the Roman peace, how long it lasts, how successful it was. By the end of this episode, you will understand the Roman engine is getting so strong. They've got engineering achievements, and you'll see the true price tag of how great and grand this Roman Empire is going to be, starting with the rule of Augustus. Let's begin. Picture the Mediterranean basin. We've seen this so many times, but now in 27 BC, it's looking bigger and stronger. If you're coming here from lesson 48, you know it's been a lot of struggle. In a 100-year time period, this century of civil war has really shredded the old Roman Republic. Julius Caesar is dead. Mark Antony, Cleopatra, they're gone. And Octavian, 35-year-old, a very successful and skilled leader, is named Augustus by the Senate. And he has resolved all these struggles. He has taken the power. But his policies are so good, he's actually quite skilled. And he's setting up for the next century of success, which we'll cover in this lesson, but it'll go on another century beyond. This is the golden age of Rome starting right now, and we call it the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Augustus manages this empire from its beginning, not a Roman republic anymore, and stretches the borders. This is 2 million square miles. And since these 75 million people have so many diverse cultures and religions and even the economies, now we have to unify everybody. How do you hold this group together? Augustus is a messaging master. He does go to the Senate and hand back his power. He says, no, this is a republic. I can't be a monarch. And technically he never was. But he very quietly takes the lever of power, pretty much all of it, commanding all the legions and controlling the grain supply. He even holds the right to veto any law that the Senate is putting out. And so when the Senate names him this new name, Augustus, revered one, it starts to sound divine. He doesn't take divinity quite just yet, but he sure is going to act like it. He is the emperor in everything but title. And because he's good, this is one of our tough questions throughout this lesson. It's not a republic. It's not a democracy. It's Augustus being a really effective leader. Never calling himself king, he will call himself Caesar. And this is the name Caesar becoming a title that is used in the future by many civilizations, many cultures. But he is the Principate, the top magistrate. And for the next 200 years, this is the foundation of Western society that still matters very much to us today. Around 28 BC, Augustus begins the process of counting everybody. What's the Latin word for counting everybody? Census. They're going to count 4 million, more than 4 million citizens in Rome. Why? Just for fun? No. We're measuring the land so that we can tax everybody. That annual revenue is going to start to roll in at incredible rates because it's peaceful now. The Civil War being over, it's a lot easier to make money. 500 million sesterces. What? How much is 500 million sesterces? This is if you were to pay 300,000 soldiers for an entire year, you would spend just a little more than half of that money. The other half of the money could go to 250,000 construction workers, magistrates, building more infrastructure, paying for these materials. So the military was about that size, 300,000. So maybe half the budget. But that military was keeping the peace and building a peaceful future, a strong economy. As the money is paving the roads and paying the soldiers to guard the roads, they put a Roman soldier every mile to help the roads stay safe, to help trade. This money is creating like the fortress around this empire, the protection of trade routes, the peace, all that money pouring into Rome. They're building incredible monuments out of marble. The old saying, Augustus found Rome brick and he left it marble. Now the empire needs a marble story to make this feel righteous. So let's meet Publius Vergilius Maro. You know him as Virgil, and coming from lesson 43, we told you some more of that story of the Aeneid by Aeneas and his travels. Virgil wrote that, and he wrote it now. So I might have teased that a little bit, but Augustus hires Virgil to help the narrative. He's a narrative master when it comes to helping define the Roman soul. Virgil writes the Aeneid to help Romans identify with noble and courageous pursuits, because the Aeneid is taking Roman conquest and portraying it as a virtuous burden. Because remember back at the Trojan War, the Trojans lost, and Aeneas fled the burning city. He risked his own life to carry his father Anchises. Aeneas' mother was Venus, the goddess of love and beauty for the Romans. Aeneas was noble and courageous, and adventures of Aeneas mirror Homer's Odyssey, but Virgil writes the next level story, civilizing that burden that's carried by noble people. Spare the conquered, crush the proud. And the Romans are doing this to help the world. Every Roman schoolboy now memorizes that line, spare the conquered, crush the proud, coming from the Aeneid. And this poetry helps justify the legions for what they're doing, and it helps justify the taxes. We need the money. How do we pay for this marble? The taxes. And the marble is also propaganda. So the story spreads. Thank you, Virgil. Augustus hires Virgil. But these marble monuments that we are seeing all over the Roman Empire, many still standing today, the marble is also propaganda. It sounds like Augustus is the hero to start the Pax Romana, but maybe it was a formula from one of his engineers, the Opus Caementicium. Hard name to say, Caementicium. My student invented a name, Concretus. That was the Latin that invented Roman concrete. Roman concrete, yes. If you take volcanic ash from the slopes of Mount Vesuvius, you mix it with lime, water, rubble, pour that into wooden forms, that Roman mixture grows stronger and stronger. And a lot is still standing. I'll show you my favorite structure in a moment. The salt water interacts in this chemical reaction with the volcanic ash, and new minerals grow inside the concrete 2,000 years later, look, we still have the Pantheon. That was the largest dome in the world for centuries, and spectacular. I love visiting there, one of my favorite spots. Modern reinforced concrete from, recent time, from the 90s, since I've been teaching since the 90s, could already be crumbling. It's not even as good. We know we're going to tear it down, I guess, but this empire, the Roman Empire, is building monuments that are designed to outlast the centuries, outlast the men that poured them. One wealthy man that helped pour, he paid for people to pour, Marcus Agrippa. He turned this recipe into a skyline of the Pantheon that is so cool. One visit when I was taking kids in the streets of Rome, we were rushed. It was raining. Our tour guide was so hard to understand. He had such a thick accent. People were exhausted. We had had a hectic day. As soon as we crossed the threshold into the Pantheon on the inside, there was a church group, an Irish Christian group singing songs. It was just the most beautiful acoustics. It really relaxed everybody for a second.
This is the Pantheon Church that we are in right now.
Yeah.
And
there's music, huh?
There's very nice sounding music. And a orchestra playing music.
You were right when you said the Romans like the Corinthian pillars.
Yeah.
Are everywhere.
Let's listen to music. It's a spectacular building. It's Rome is becoming so popular. It's hard to get in. But I digress. You'll see Agrippa's name at the door, and you'll see a spectacular building, Pantheon. Agrippa's vision was for all the gods of the Roman Empire. But this was started somewhere 27 to 25 BC is just when he commissions it and begins the payment process. It wasn't finished until later. But as a temple to all the gods, when Hadrian finally does kind of finish and rebuild parts, Agrippa's name is featured as a tribute to. This is kind of like what the Pax Romana should be about. That instead of Agrippa spending his genius winning naval battles, that's what he used to do. That's how he helped Augustus when he was Octavian defeat Mark Antony. Now look. The spectacular monument to this great empire. And an interesting feature, all the engineering is fascinating, but the Oculus, that 30-foot hole in the top, so carefully engineered. It's the perfect window cut into the sky so that rain is going to fall straight down into the center, the marble floor. Why do you need a hole in the sky? Because the beam of sunlight slides across that dome like the glowing finger of God. It was later turned into a Christian church after Christianity was a part of the Romans. It's not in the early days. It kind of embodies what the Pax Romana should be about as the as God is reaching down and somehow blessing and encouraging what is happening with the Romans. That's what Augustus would want you to think. Now, let's consider what it means when he dies. In AD 14, Augustus dies, and the Roman engine, it's going strong. It's the peace of Rome is so strong. As we start talking about less than perfect emperors, Augustus was strong. He was so good. But who comes after him? How are we going to maintain 50,000 miles of the paved roads, feeding 70 million people with trade routes and grain shipments? Now every decision is set. Augustus ruled a long time, and they expect that the emperor is going to handle everything. Imagine inheriting this treasury with all this money. What kind of person does the successor have to be? What kind of skill to be a CEO of this huge empire? The next 60 years, we're going to have big problems with the emperor, not with the engine. It's super interesting. When Augustus adopts Tiberius, makes him part of the family, Tiberius is the adopted son. Augustus was adopted. Octavian was adopted by Julius Caesar. So from the year 14, AD 14 to 37, Tiberius is the guy. He is the emperor. Tiberius was a brilliant general. He was also deeply miserable. He hated Rome. He hated the Senate. He despised being emperor and spent most of his time isolated at the island of Capri. Check out the scenes around Capri. I've been there a few times. I've taken students there. I mean, it's just stunning. It's gorgeous. It's just a little south of Vesuvius, Mount Vesuvius, the famous eruption that buried the town of Pompeii. There's just a lot of spectacular beauty here. And Tiberius is able to run things. There's plenty of magistrates now that know how to do it. They were started by the best. But it looks like Tiberius governs remotely, by the mail. He avoids costly wars, for one, does not expand. He doesn't want to spend money, actually kind of hoards the money. The stockpile of extra sesterces, extra money. Tiberius spends some of it. He has his own scandals in how he lives his life at Rome, what he arranges for, who he throws off the cliff. There's a lot of stories there. But at this point, students wonder what is going to happen with all that money. And when his adopted son, Caligula, comes at age 24 to take over, Tiberius was famously paranoid about getting assassinated, one of the reasons why he's hiding out. Caligula inherits the largest cash reserve and has a completely different type of character. He burns through almost all of this cash in less than 4 years. He is bizarre, also with similar issues that Tiberius had, but in new ways, very vain, very severed from reality in different ways. So why am I telling you this? Because the character, the virtue, is he going to be an effective ruler with traits like that? One of Caligula's bizarre behaviors involves commandeering the regional merchant fleet of southern Italy, kind of close to the bay at Naples. He orders that all these ships get lashed together, like across a 3-mile span. It's like a pontoon bridge that goes across this bay. Why? There's no attack or reason to do this. It's so that he can ride his horse across it. Okay, was there a reason? Yes, because a soothsayer once told him he had as much chance becoming emperor as riding a horse across that bay. He nearly triggered a famine, the grain supplies in Rome, because those were the grain ships that he commandeered. that he used to build this bridge. This is the type of crazy emperor that we have to start being on the lookout for. And it's going to happen a lot throughout history. How does the Pax Romana keep going? The Roman engine is so strong thanks to Augustus. So I'm kind of looking out for evidence. Why will the Roman engine do better despite crazy emperors or crazy emperor behavior? Let's be fair. If you came from lesson 57, you heard that Caligula also wanted to be worshipped as a god now. The Senate assassinated Caligula in the year 41. The Praetorian Guard, that was the elite guard force that Augustus had developed, the trusted, closest guards to the emperor, the Praetorian Guard. They found the nephew of Augustus. He was a young, stuttering, limping nephew. He was hiding behind a curtain after the assassination. The Praetorian Guard propped up Claudius and made him emperor. Claudius rules from the year 41, AD 41 to 54, and everyone underestimated him. There's a lot to unpack here. If you ever wonder, if you want to do deep dives about Claudius, his reign. But let's look at some things he actually did accomplish despite being underestimated, not your expected type of emperor. He's really one of the most effective administrators that Rome ever produced. You know, helping the Pax Romana expand. He is the one conquering Britain, getting the Roman Empire across English Channel and extending Roman citizenship deeper than ever before into these provinces. And Claudius would conquer a place and build the marble monument. Like where in this Colchester castle, this is where the eastern fields of Britain, the Romans find the remnants of Claudius's temple, a colossal classical temple that was ruined in that spot. You know, times have passed, but this is the place. 8 massive columns across the front with a Greco-Roman portico that planted directly in the Celtic mud really shows the Romans are here. This is the style of architecture. The Pax Romana spreads into British soil, and it's a statement, right? Rome has arrived. The Britons hated it, actually, so they're glad to burn it down. In fact, this is the story of Boudica, who led the revolt. Boudica, she was strong and famous and embodies the hatred of the Roman invasion. Kind of that's 12 years later. But those concrete foundations are still down there today. You can see them. They're holding up the Colchester Castle. And you can't dig them out. Roman concrete is not going to let you do that. Now zoom south. Here's another construction of Claudius, the Arena of Verona. Verona. Ah, fair Verona. That's the Romeo and Juliet Verona. This was actually the first amphitheater that I'd ever been to in college in 1989. We go inside this amphitheater. The amphitheater at Verona has pink and white limestone. It was hauled from local quarries, stacked into the perfect oval. This is like the size of a small town, and 30,000 spectators can fit inside. 2,000 years later, they still use it. Opera singers, reenacting. This is where gladiators would have entertained people, thanks to Claudius. Now, Claudius shows, like, you want to have a strong Pax Romana, we don't conquer people and wipe them out and kill them. Give them the same buildings as Rome. Spread this out. The temples, the arenas, the paved streets, the running water. Aqueducts. What is an aqueduct? One of Claudius's masterpieces, the Aqua Claudia. The Aqua Claudia, Caligula actually started it in 38, AD 38. But by 52, it was finally finished. This is 43 miles of a stone channel that marches down out of the mountains slowly. It's across the Roman Campagna into the heart of the imperial capital. This is how Rome was getting more water for these increasing populations, and it goes along the Via Appia, the Via. That's the Latin word for way, the Appian Way. That's the main road in from the south. Now, this is the Pax Romana, the road system, the water system, the buildings that go. You know, an aqueduct is an incredible river that flows downhill at only barely, just letting gravity take it down a few inches every mile. I think it's 8 inches every mile. And engineers have to carve this stone channel. It's like a large, shallow trough that might be 5, 6, 7 feet downward per mile, just depending, and you got to measure all this. It's a Roman machine. It's a mechanism. And the land doesn't always cooperate with you. So you see all these Roman arches. What's a Roman arch? The Roman arch was the engineering, you know, they put that keystone in there. Some of these Roman arches need to stretch out over 100 feet tall. Water is never pumped. It's never pressurized. The richest 1/3 of the Romans had running water in their house. Something that we're going to forget about during the Dark Ages after the Romans fall. But even in the areas right outside your house, 1/3 of the population would have that. And the entire population of Rome had access to running water, fresh water. They would use it for more than just drinking. As we'll find out later in the amphitheaters, you can do some crazy things. But an aqueduct that goes 43 miles down from the mountains, bringing fresh, clean mountain water. It's really special. The Aqua Claudia. That was 50 million gallons of fresh, cold mountain water every single day. So, besides drinking, the public bath system. If you haven't seen the Roman bath system, a big part of the culture, 3 main temperature rooms for hot water, cold water, and tepid water. Beautiful marble buildings. Here's Roman bath. There's several in Pompeii that I've been to. We've seen huge structures in other places. And then, you know, as the Roman bath stretches out to the east, you hear about Turkish baths. So those are just Roman baths as well. It was a place to hang out. It was a place to spend an hour or two and literally clean, but also like a gym or a place to relax. The Roman engine and this water delivery, that is proof. First century Romans actually had more access to clean drinking water than any time on earth until the year 1900. Yeah, the fall of the Roman Empire is coming. That'll be a big lesson. One more about the genius and effectiveness of the Claudian era. He decided to drain Italy's 3rd largest lake. This is Lake Fucinus. No natural outflow from this lake. Claudius wants the lake bed for farmland. So 30,000 men, 11 years of labor, he had to carve a 4-mile tunnel straight through Mount Salviano. Mount Salviano, and this tunnel is going to slope downward 8 feet per mile, almost like those aqueducts. And if this calculation is off, by the way, if these engineers mess it up, the water doesn't flow out. The tunnel is going to collapse. Project ruined. They calculate this with chains, torches, everything they got exactly right. But engineering projects define the Claudian era and help the infrastructure that make the Pax Romana so good. Let's go to the next. In AD 54, Nero rules next, replacing Claudius. Nero is an artist. He really flexes his absolute power, his divinity, godlike status. In the year 64, the famous fire of Rome that burns for 9 days. 10 out of the 14 districts are destroyed. Nero takes about 300 acres in the dead center prime areas of the burned city to build his Domus Aurea, the golden house. This is a spectacular home with a banquet hall that rotates continually to mimic the heavens. He would host parties, very spectacular hydraulic engineering powers. And with the water system because of the aqueducts. But he also has that famous bronze statue, the Colossus Neronis, 106 feet of bronze, shining in the sun because he was like the sun god. And the treasury of the sun god is being depleted. And Caligula, there's a lot to unpack with his levels of crazy. We'll mention him in some upcoming Christian lessons because of his persecution. But you get the idea from his personal life, his tragic end of his life, because in the year 68, Nero takes his own life, commits suicide. His troops have abandoned him. It's kind of like they want to erase. So there will be a new Flavian dynasty. Nero would be the end of the Julius Caesar, the Julio-Claudian line, and the Flavian dynasty seizes power. They want to erase Nero, and they drain his artificial lake that was in the middle of his golden house, and they instead replace it with the construction, concrete, Roman arches, and a spectacular, the largest amphitheater. What do you call the largest amphitheater in Rome, the largest one? It's exciting to visit. This is the Colosseum. You've been waiting for the Colosseum. Just make sure you know where it comes in history. You know, it's taking the name Colossus from the Colossus statue of Nero. As they erase, and that's the same land zone, the Flavian amphitheater, the Colosseum, is for everybody. The public arena that will hold more than 50,000 cheering Roman citizens as they could watch spectacular games, helping them to erase the memory of Nero as Titus and his before him his father Vespasian. You know, they got this project going. The Colosseum is part of the Roman engine. It is literally a mechanical engineering masterpiece. For one, beneath the sand level where they fight, it's called the hypogeum. 2 levels of subterranean mazes. It's a labyrinth. You can see it down there. I've never been down in there. I've been many times at the Colosseum. It is so cool. But we hear the stories of the counterweights and the elevators, the trap doors where the gladiators are going to be springing up, or maybe the gladiators will watch lions be sprung up from beneath, tigers flying in there as if gods are calling these animals to come and fight these gladiators. By the way, when you see these pictures of the Colosseum, it's already been like quarried. When the Roman Empire falls and they start chipping away at these nice rocks and using them other places. So that's why the Colosseum is not the amphitheater. The Verona, did you notice Verona has not been chipped away? But where it's not removed, and you can look and see evidence of the structure, that was the velarium. What is the velarium? The shades over the top. It had like a roof, a fabric roof, 24 tons of retractable canvas awnings, like sails, like shades, protecting spectators from the sun. And they were operated by 1,000 expert sailors that knew how to run sails, right? Just to keep people comfortable. Speaking of sailors, they needed some sailors to be in the fights because they could engineer the floor to fill up with water. They could the aqueducts could pour in 5 feet of water to fill this basin for the naumachia. The naumachia, floating around boats, replica warships to fight each other in mock naval battles, gladiators on the sea, right there for you. 50,000 people. The games were a huge deal. And the Colosseum came during the Pax Romana. It's the golden age. Which magnificent public achievement do you like the best? You have to leave it in the comment. Press the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. It helps Classical Kingdom so much. The Pax Romana. This should be a fun lesson, a list of so many great things, and we only have time for so much. We got to get to Trajan. He's coming next because some people look at Trajan. You know, Trajan takes power in 98, AD 98 until 117. He's the peak. In what ways? The Senate names Trajan the Optimus Princeps, the best ruler. He's born in Spain, Hispania. He commands his legions personally. He sleeps in the mud. With 2 brutal campaigns, he conquered Dacia. The plunder brought like 350,000 pounds of gold, like twice that in silver. It's a spectacular amount of wealth. And Trajan spends it in Rome, on Rome. He funds the Alimenta, this welfare type of program, giving cash and food and education for orphans and poor children. He builds Trajan's Forum, we can see, into the Quirinal Hill, world's first shopping mall with 150 shops and offices, like the next best, biggest one. But we care about Trajan's Column. How do we know all these stories about Trajan? They're written in the column. 125 feet tall, it spirals up. It's like 660 feet of carved relief that narrates the stories of Trajan's conquest, frame by frame. Trajan hires a master engineer, Apollodorus of Damascus, to build like 2,500 feet of archway bridge across the Danube River. It remains the longest arch bridge in the world for over 1,000 years. The engineering feat of this is spectacular. The zenith of the Romans, and the empire is richer and grander. But you see, the Pax Romana is not sudden. I've just given the first 140 years of it in this lesson. It's a masterpiece of physical engineering. The marble, the concrete, the Roman roads. It's spectacular, and it helps humans flourish. The monument of Trajan, the Optimus Princeps, the best first citizen. It's still there today. It's not far from the Pantheon, one of my favorite buildings, still there today. But the real point is the way this matters. It matters to us still today. The Romans matter. The peace of Rome matters. And one big question I have for you is, could we be in the Pax Americana even right now with all of our inventions and success? Is that possible? But we do know one thing, that kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.